And we begin with MS Now contributor Inzamam Rashid from Dubai. So, Inzamam, has Iran further indicated whether it might loosen its grip on the Strait of Hormuz, this in light of tomorrow's round of talks?
Well, their indication tonight is that they may not be going to these talks. That's what they're saying initially. Of course, these talks, which will be held in Pakistan. It seems that the Pakistanis are getting prepared to have the US Vice President J.D. Vance in town, along with his team of Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. And also the Pakistanis seem to be hoping that the Iranians will be there as well. But firstly, before any talk of the Strait of Hormuz, well, Iran need to be there in the room initially. And right now they are suggesting that they won't turn up. And that's because of the US blockade, which currently remains in the Strait of Hormuz. But they've also said a few other points as well, Alex. They said that Washington's excessive demands are unrealistic, and their unrealistic expectations, constant shifts in stance, repeated contradictions, and the ongoing naval blockade. That's the reason that they've said via the IRNA news agency that they would not be attending this second round of peace negotiations in Islamabad. And then you look to the point of the Strait of Hormuz. The reason that it's currently shut is because Iran are unhappy with the US blockade that currently remains. And now we're not seeing any ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz whatsoever. Before, when Iran did have control over it, they were sending some of their own ships through. They were allowing some vessels which they felt they were on good terms with to pass through. Right now, because of Iranian blockade and now the US blockade, effectively there's no traffic whatsoever through the Strait of Hormuz. And this has all happened since Iran announced that they would open it up. They did open it up for a few hours. And then, of course, they targeted a couple of vessels directly using their gunboats, approaching some of these vessels, firing upon them. And then as a result, shipping completely stopped in that waterway. So I think shipping and the Strait of Hormuz will be a very big talking point if Iran does decide to go to Pakistan to have discussions. So too will the war in Lebanon. Of course, there is a ceasefire there right now that's running for the next 8 days or so. And then, of course, we've got this other ceasefire of the wider war in Iran, the fighting which Israel and the US have been attacking Iran over the last 7 weeks, with Iran's retaliation into Israel and, of course, the Gulf states as well. We are running out of time with that ceasefire. And so I think that's why right now there is a real urgency to get all these sides in the room once again and to have further peace negotiations. Last weekend, it was 21 hours that J.D. Vance was in Pakistan for having conversations. I think they will want them to be in the room for a lot longer, maybe even a couple of days, to try and get some conclusion to bring peace to this region. Alex.
Okay, we'll see if everybody shows up. We'll take a watch for that. Inzamam Rashid, thank you as always, my friend. Let's go to MS Now's Akayla Gardner, who is at the White House for us. So what is the Trump administration saying about the peace talks, and what happens if there is no deal, Akayla?
Well, it wasn't that long ago that President Trump had actually threatened to destroy an entire civilization if there was no deal with Iran. It's a statement that multiple administration officials defended, but the president today was very specific. He's again threatening to target every single bridge and every single power plant in Iran. And if he does that, it would make it nearly impossible for Iran to deliver emergency medical care to their own citizens in the middle of a war. It would also almost certainly violate international humanitarian law, which prohibits attacks on civilian infrastructure. But today, when the UN ambassador Mike Waltz was asked about that, he was really dismissive. Take a listen.
He's saying every bridge and every power plant in the country, that wouldn't be a war crime?
That would be an escalatory ladder. And if you go back in the history of warfare, go all the way back to World War II, of course, we bombed and took down bridges, other infrastructure, power plants that, yes, could be used for civilian, but also are used to manufacture drones and missiles. And the Iranian regime in particular and its terrorist proxies have a long history of actually deliberately hiding military infrastructure in hospitals, schools, neighborhoods, and other civilian assets.
And Alex, just to lay out the tensions going into tomorrow's talks, at one point this week, President Trump said he was actually screaming on the phone with Iranian officials, telling Fox News that's the only thing they understand. And we've seen Iranian officials make very clear that they're not happy with the president's rhetoric, with his repeated posts on Truth Social, and they've lost their own social media campaign seeking to portray President Trump in a negative light. But the president has continued to talk about these talks very optimistically, and he also left the door open potentially to going to Pakistan himself. Alex?
Interesting news nuggets there. Thank you very much, Akayla Gardner.